The Palace of Westminster, or as it's more commonly known, the Houses of Parliament, stands as a symbol of British democracy and is recognised throughout the world. However, this country's journey to becoming an integrated democratic society has been a long, difficult and at times violent one. For instance, on the 5th of November 1605, the Royal Guard burst into the cellars in this very building and found a man dressed in riding gear, clutched beside 36 barrels of gunpowder, holding a box of long matches. The man's name was Guy Fawkes. Fawkes had been embroiled in a plot to kill James I, the King of England. And along with his fellow conspirators, they had become increasingly frustrated with the King's suppression of their religious freedoms. Moving on, 30 years later, during the reign of Charles I, parliamentarians had become annoyed with their lack of governance and the King's constant opening and closing of Parliament to serve his own selfish ends. This resulted in a bloody and terrible conflict which pitted Englishmen against Englishmen in civil war throughout most of the 1640s, ultimately resulting in the execution of Charles I in January 1649. It was not until the end of the 1600s, 1695 to be precise, when England held its first election, and then not until 1708 when Britain held its first general election. Despite this country's long association with democracy, the privilege to vote was not held by all. For instance, it was another 200 years before women gained the right to vote at the conclusion of World War I in 1918, and then they had to be married and over the age of 30. It is within living memory and the Representation of the People Act in 1969 that both men and women aged over 18 gained the right to vote in all subsequent elections. At Merrywood, the role of democracy is embedded as part of our human and social curriculum. Children learn about how early civilizations have formed our understanding of democracy by looking at the ancient Greeks, for example. Children go on to learn about Britain's role in creating just and fair societies. We value the opinions of our learners, and that helps inform part of our daily practice. Our robust human and social curriculum takes into consideration the children's life experiences and makes learning relevant to them and their place within the wider world. Our aim is that when children leave us at Merrywood, they leave as informed, thoughtful decision makers of the future. Across the street is 10 Downing Street, the official residence of the UK Prime Minister, and it has been the home to many famous Prime Ministers throughout this country's history. From Sir Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, who helped defeat Napoleon Bonaparte at the Battle of Waterloo, to Sir Winston Churchill, who guided this country through World War II, to Margaret Thatcher, the UK's first female Prime Minister. It is also the residence of the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. On the 4th of July this year, people up and down the country will exercise their democratic right and vote in the general election. The question is, come July the 5th, who will hold the keys to Downing Street? What is important, regardless of who the new Prime Minister is the fact that the people of this country get to decide. That's the beauty of democracy.